You had the opportunity to testify in front of the Senate, and you received some backlash for that. Can you tell us what you were testifying about and the significance of it, and then also your experience following that, the backlash you received?
During the COVID pandemic, as a medical oncologist and researcher, we knew quite a bit about drugs that might have an impact on COVID infection, and we knew things about the immune system that may tell us something about the severity of COVID. So we did that kind of research, and we've known for a long time, again with a background in cancer research, that a number of viruses can cause cancer, and some are very well documented, some are controversial. And so we started looking into that, connections between COVID and mechanisms of cancer. And we uncovered some preliminary evidence that if you overexpress the spike protein either from the COVID infection or COVID vaccines, you can attenuate and block the function of our major tumor suppressor gene that protects us from cancer. And we reported those findings in 2024. And we said in the discussion, and I don't think this should be controversial, that if you want to develop a great vaccine, you got to make sure you boost the immunity against the virus, but limit any sort of collateral damage on host defenses. I came under attack after that, and I can tell you more, but with regard to what else we did, I was invited to serve on a Health and Human Services committee that focused on COVID immunizations. This committee that was advisory to the CDC, and I did that for 9 months up until March, when that committee was disbanded. And I looked into everything we know about COVID infection, COVID vaccines, and cancer, and we found some things. We found about 300 case reports of cancer from 27 countries, describing different kinds of cancers that have occurred after COVID vaccine injections. And what caught my attention is some of those cancers were at the injection site after a first or second COVID vaccine. Some of the cancers were happening physically close, not just in association and timing, but also where they're happening, in the head and neck area, lymphomas, head and neck, brain cancers, other cancers, breast cancers were being seen. And my interest in this had to do with not just reporting on what is out there in the published literature, but also the idea of informed consent for COVID vaccines. And so my testimony on June 3rd was about what we know about plausible mechanisms by which COVID vaccines could have a connection with cancer. And I'll tell you this, frankly, if there was nothing there, we wouldn't still be talking about this 6 years later, but there have been some unexpected observations that have occurred, such as we've all been told, the vaccine stays right in the arm, goes away in a few hours or certainly a few days at most. That turned out not to be true. This is something known as biodistribution. It goes elsewhere in the body. Then some researchers, including some at the FDA and several labs, found contaminants in vaccine vials, and this was traced back to a different way that these vaccines were manufactured. And there was DNA fragments, plasmids, things that just shouldn't be there in these vaccines that are packaged in these lipid particles. The lipid particles take their cargo right into our cells. And so those things were unexpected. And then, other things happen. After we published our paper, I was contacted by a Japanese minister who told me his story that a few years ago, after getting his COVID vaccine, he developed an aggressive lymphoma that metastasized, traveled to his tonsil, and it was biopsied, and when they looked into it, they found the spike protein. There shouldn't be spike in cancer.
Wow.
How does it get there? What is it doing there? And so it's these unexpected observations and concern about what the public has been told could happen. I don't really, and I said this in my testimony, I don't think we have informed consent for COVID mRNA vaccines in 2026. And this really should be addressed. And I honestly don't know why it hasn't been. I have suspected that maybe the FDA has additional information that hasn't been released to the public. But in any event, I think there should be transparency. If there is more data supporting the safety of these things, it should be available for everybody to look at. I'm also very concerned about science and the future of science, where people who ask legitimate scientific questions are attacked. They have their reputations and careers destroyed. And just because they may deviate a little bit from a mainstream narrative, and that's not the science that I grew up with in America. I think that scientists should be able to think freely, communicate their ideas, and ask questions, and even make mistakes. That's how we learn, all of us together. We evolve our knowledge and we get better ideas. And I am all for vaccines that are safe and effective with informed consent. That's what I think we need, and there's no reason why we couldn't meet that standard in our country.
Could or should, you think about some of the pharmaceutical companies that have immunity from prosecution. Based on your research, I don't know if you can speak to this. Should there be prosecutions based on what you've seen, or is this somewhere that we should look into knowingly not providing informed consent? Is there?
I think there should be accountability. I don't think there should be immunity from any sort of liability, certainly not 6 years into a pandemic where there aren't a lot of people dying. It's much less of a public health issue now. And, at my testimony, I mentioned that the modified mRNA, the pseudouridine modified mRNA, has been rolled out into the use in the general population for the first time in history, okay? And, maybe it was justified at a certain point. I do think the companies knew more than they revealed, including, a Moderna patent that talked about the risks of integration of contaminating DNA. And we know that foreign DNA that can integrate into the genome can be a factor that can contribute to cancer. The standard for informed consent isn't proof of causality. It is things that have happened that we should know about, so that when you agree to put something in your body, you're informed about the risks. And I care about how likely something is. I want to know, is it 1 in 1,000, 1 in 100,000, 1 in 10 million? What are my chances? And I believe that in the general population, we all have different risks. Again, things that science can address. Who's at greater risk? How do we refine our practices so that it's not just one answer for everyone? For those who are deemed to be helped by a vaccine, that should be a discussion with their physician. And I think there may be accountability beyond the pharmaceutical companies. I think there could be and should be accountability within our regulatory agencies that have to take a good and hard look at what has been either overlooked or not scrutinized at the level that it should be. This is very important if the public is to trust our government agencies like the FDA and the CDC and so on. I think truth in science and evidence speaks for itself, and knowledgeable, educated individuals can look at evidence. They can make up their own minds. I think the public appreciates the truth, and I think our colleagues in the medical community are able to do this, but they also need the tools. Like, we're not even capturing a lot of the evidence. We don't have the tools to do this with coding in medical records and so on and so forth. So, I mean, I think there are a number of gaps in knowledge as well as a need to address a number of issues that have arisen as a result of this experience.
I want to spend more time with you. We're going to have to hold it for next time, but naturopathic, you see all this stuff coming out on social media, basically, you know, curing cancer with certain supplements and things out. So I want to continue this conversation, but for now, I really appreciate that. Where can people get more information about your work, find more about you, and maybe buy your book as well?
Yeah, you know, I'm out there. I'm easy to find. I am a professor at Brown University. I'm out on social media. I'm very easy to find. I try to help people. You know, my lab discovered a drug almost 20 years ago. This was approved for the treatment of an aggressive brain cancer last year. And I'm happy to help patients in the general field of precision oncology. With regard to your other question, I'll just say very briefly, I am open-minded. I think science and truth reveals itself. And you know, there are ancient medicines that go back thousands of years that aren't well understood. And so I think most reasonable people and scientists and physicians are open-minded about how things may help our health, whether it's by boosting the immune system or you know, helping us deal with toxins in our body and so on and so forth. So, you know, I think we need more research in some of these areas, and they need to get some attention.
Thank you, sir.